It's an unfortunate truth that many don't like to talk about in the entertainment industry, which often can lead its stars to fight their own personal demons. And professional wrestling and WWE has no exception for this. Sadly, these demons can often manifest themselves in the forms of drugs and alcohol issues for the individuals. So it can be argued that the fame and fortune that comes with wrestling can lead to these addictions. But it's not just that, it's the grueling schedule and the physical toll the wrestlers endure that can also lead a dependency on pain medication. This is an unsavory side of the business that affects everyone from the cruiserweight, mid-carders to the world champions. And sadly, in some rare cases, it can often lead to one's death. So whilst WWE does take the positive approach in dealing with individuals, often sending them to rehab or taking them away from TV until they get better, many wrestlers have argued, unlike any other sport, WWE has no off-season. You're constantly on the road, away from your friends and family, fighting for your spot on the card, which can lead down a dark path for some. And like most physical sports, WWE wrestlers week in, week out put their body on the line. This often means to recover from the aches and pains, one would often take recreational drugs for a quick recovery. And while the term recreational may imply positive connotations in normal doses, unfortunately there are also wrestlers who find themselves struggling down a dark path and quickly become addicted. And today we'll be discussing a few cases that can help us understand the reason behind the ongoing issue within WWE. Starting off with Kurt Angle. When he debuted in the late 90s during the peak of the Attitude Era, he was known for his impressive wrestling background. So Angle was presented as an Olympic gold medalist and an exceptional athlete. His character embodied intense competitiveness and a drive to be the best. So during his WWE career, Angle achieved tremendous success. Kurt went on to win multiple championships such as the IC, European and the World Heavyweight Championship on multiple occasions. But he also had memorable rivalries with some of the biggest names in WWE such as Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock and Brock Lesnar. However, it was with his feud with Lesnar that really took a toll on him. In February 2003, during an altercation with Brock Lesnar, during a match on SmackDown, Lesnar would drop Angle on the back of his neck.
And something popped in my neck. So that little maneuver, the last bump I could take.
This injury ended up aggravating a pre-existing issue, including a broken neck suffered in the 90s during his wrestling career. And here's what Angle had to say about the situation, as this is what led him to his addiction to painkillers.
Brock broke my neck in 2003. That's when I was introduced to painkillers. And the second I took them, I loved them.
So Kurt Angle found out a month before WrestleMania 19 that he had a broken neck and wasn't going to be able to wrestle. He was going to need neck surgery and would likely miss a year of in-ring time, therefore affecting the storyline that had been built up and losing his spot on the pay-per-view, which he admitted to. However, Angle decided to tough it out and wrestle Brock Lesnar at Mania to defend his WWE title. There were tons of worries that Kurt would hurt his neck and become paralyzed for the rest of his life. This just highlights the pressure these wrestlers put themselves under to perform not only for the company, but the fans that grow to love them. It's a gamble that has repercussions that none of us may understand. For example, Angle stated the following after his decision.
I started taking them and, when one didn't work or, it wore off, I started taking 2 and then 2 went to 4, 4 went to 8, 8 went to 16. I got completely out of control.
As Angle mentioned in his podcast, he ended up becoming addicted to painkillers up to a point where he was taking 65 a day. And considering taking 8 can be very dangerous for one's body, you can only imagine what Kurt must have been going through. So when 2006 rolled around, he was released by Vince McMahon and WWE for refusal to get treatment nor admitting his addiction. In fact, Kurt was so addicted and so high on drugs that he used to send threatening texts and calls to Vince, threatening to even fight him on a few occasions.
What the hell are these? And I'm reading them and I'm like, it says, Vince, I'm going to kick your ass when I see you. I don't remember doing this.
Thankfully, with the support of his family, Kurt was able to overcome his addictions, although the ultimatum did come when his wife was going to leave him if he didn't go to rehab. And lucky for all of us, Kurt did manage to recover and eventually make his way back into WWE and eventually be inducted into the Hall of Fame by John Cena himself. However, while Angle has overcome his demons and addictions, there are a few wrestlers that are still struggling with their battles. One such wrestler is Jeff Hardy. It is known that Jeff's had a volatile career up until now. He's one of the few wrestlers that's made it to the mountaintop in WWE and remain a beloved figure amongst his peers and fans alike. However, even up until last year, Hardy has been having issues with both alcohol and substance abuse, with WWE releasing him for the 3rd time in his career. Though he has come out saying that WWE jumped the gun with his most recent release, the story was that Hardy walked out through the crowd in the middle of a tag match at a house show, and WWE believed he was under the influence of something and told him he'd either had to go to rehab or he'd be released from the company. Jeff went on to say that when he walked out of the tag match through through the crowd at the house show, it was more for the unpredictability factor to see what he can get away with, and later on took a drug test to prove that he was innocent. So while his most recent release from WWE can be debated, less can be said for the other 2 times.
Tonight, Jeff Hardy of Cameron, North Carolina has been charged with DUI in Volusia County.
Wrestling superstar Jeff Hardy was arrested in downtown Myrtle Beach today, who was intoxicated at a local hotel.
You are under arrest for the offense of DUI, okay?
Jeff Hardy throughout his career has always had a difficult relationship with the law, but it wasn't always like that for the charismatic Enigma. When the Hardy Boys started their WWE career, they started off very young within the company, and for the most part in the early days they stayed clean according to Jeff. It wasn't until the brothers started to travel on the road where the problems started to begin for Jeff, stating the difficulties of being away from home in an environment where he felt rather shy in. This was the reason that led him down the road of substance abuse within WWE. In a later podcast with Lillian Garcia, he mentioned it himself and stated,
Actually just started kind of, experimenting with things, and it just I got carried away with it.
So at first you're doing it for the pain. The pain goes away. But then why did you keep adding? Did you like the high?
I think so, and I think it's just that whole, more sociable when I'm high, I guess, is the way you would describe it.
Because you're quieter.
Yeah, I'm a very quiet person. I always have been, but I think that's probably the main reason, just around crowds and stuff. It just made me more open.
So on April 22nd, 2003, Jeff Hardy was let go of the company for the first time for erratic behavior and drug use with refusal to go to rehab. Although in a later article in 2006, Hardy tried to play down the accusations against him, where he mentioned that I didn't require rehab when I was released from WWE. However, when WWE released me, it was not only because of the demons related to drug abuse. In reality, I failed several drug tests because I lost the interest in wrestling. It's possible that I saw it as a way out of the sport. Former WWE commentator Jim Ross mentioned on his podcast that Hardy was in full denial mode at this point. And as we all may know, the first step of getting rid of any sort of addiction is admitting that it is a problem. But most wrestlers struggle with this hurdle as it's seen as a weakness. Jim Ross did go on to state in his podcast, this is exactly what Hardy was going through.
Like a lot of substance abusers, he just didn't perceive that he had a big problem. It's nothing I can't handle. And so, when I remember sitting down and talking with him at a TV after the drug tests and so forth, and him appearing to be, affected, not in the right frame of mind, whatever pills he was taking. And I said, we have this theory here, Jeff, that, we either solve problems or we eliminate them.
So when Jeff returned in 2006, WWE took the approach of highlighting his problems rather than sweeping it underneath the rug. However, it wasn't long till Jeff violated the new wellness policy in 2007 and got himself suspended for 30 days. This was swiftly followed up by another violation in 2008 because of drugs, which meant another 60 days. And in 2009, a storyline with CM Punk was put in place to allow Hardy to leave WWE to heal from his injuries. Unfortunately, in Hardy's case, things didn't get any better due to the nature of the business and the injuries that occurred while wrestling, especially since he was a high flyer who had to gamble his body every time to create an entertaining match. Because of this, Jeff's demons just hadn't left him yet, and in later podcasts he did state the following.
When you start taking pills for pain, and then that leads to you want to take them to feel good, and then that leads to like an everyday kind of habit that I always knew that I was wrong and I was abusing them, but I was like, I'll eventually stop, because I'll go weeks without it. And because, like I said before, I've never experienced a withdrawal from any drug. I don't know what that's like. In 2009, after I left, and I was taking pills heavy when I left here in 2009, and it was kind of well hid, and then, 2-3 weeks later, after I left is when I got arrested for opioid actually trafficking because I was taking so many.
This eventually brings us to March 13th, 2011. There was a significant incident where Jeff Hardy's addiction greatly impacted his wrestling career. WWE fans may not be aware as this occurred on TNA. At the Victory Road pay-per-view, Hardy appeared to be underneath the influence and not really himself. It took Jeff Hardy over 40 seconds to come out after his entrance music started playing, and when he finally did emerge, he was clearly intoxicated on his way to the ring. The referee had no choice but to give the X sign to cancel the match. So Eric Bischoff eventually entered the ring and told Sting to finish the match early. Sting hit Hardy with the Scorpion Death Drop and forcibly pinned him to end the match in just 88 seconds. And it's a shame because these two could have delivered a great main event. So it's unfortunate that Jeff Hardy's addiction played such a significant role in this incident. We could only hope that he's receiving the help and support that he needs now to overcome them. But it does highlight the pressure that comes with being underneath the spotlight. The constant being on the road can take a toll on anyone both physically and mentally. This even goes back to the 80s era when Jake the Snake admitted on the Joe Rogan podcast how difficult the life of a wrestler can be.
Well, also the life that you were living, you could probably pull those dark thoughts out like other people
well, I would
probably can't.
I'd sit in a bar, man, and write stuff down. The next day I'd pick it up and read and go, oh my God, what the fuck was I thinking? You know, and it just horrified me. But yeah, sometimes you pull dark stuff out of bad moments in life, you know.
So as we explained from the beginning, the problem can escalate to various degrees across many wrestlers. For Kurt Angle, it was only painkillers. For Jeff, it was alcohol and drugs. But with Eddie Guerrero, it spiraled out of control that led to his death. Eddie had a significant impact in WWE. Known for his charismatic personality and his incredible in-ring abilities, he managed to capture the hearts of the fans worldwide. To this day, around the world, they still pay homage to him. Most recently, Rey Mysterio. They either wear his in-ring gear, copy his moves, or even come out in a lowrider. And rightfully so. He had a storied career in WWE, winning numerous championships, including his iconic win over Brock Lesnar for the Undisputed Championship. And beyond his in-ring talent, Eddie's most memorable moments came from engaging storytelling and compelling character work. His famous lie, cheat, and steal catchphrase and the evolution of his character from a cunning villain to a beloved hero endured him to the fans of all ages. And tragically, in 2005, Eddie passed away due to a heart complication.
Shocking find at a downtown Minneapolis hotel.
The body of World Wrestling Entertainment star Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie Guerrero has passed away. Eddie was in the prime of his life.
Eddie, I'm sorry, I just can't help it because I just can't believe you're gone.
Officially labeled a heart attack due to a lengthy history of steroids and drug usage according to his death certificate. At the time of his death, Eddie was traveling on the road with his nephew Chavo and his best friend Chris Benoit. They were all scheduled to perform at a house show for WWE later on that evening, but Eddie didn't wake up that morning and it was Chavo that went up to go check on him. And when Chavo Guerrero was interviewed by Vice in 2020, he stated that Eddie was barely clinging on to life when he found him on the hotel bathroom.
They cut the latch off. I walk in and I look in the bathroom and I see Eddie face down. He's still there, man, and we're trying, and then all of a sudden in my arms and he's not there anymore.
Many fans have speculated what would have driven Eddie to overdose on drugs, but one thing that needs to be highlighted is when Eddie was champion, he really cared about the show's ratings. It's heart-wrenching to hear that Guerrero was fixated on live attendance and figures during his reign. If there was any decline in the numbers, he would shoulder the blame, which added to his stress levels. Some of his fellow wrestlers speculate that Vince McMahon took the title off him earlier than planned to ease Guerrero's mental burden. It's a sad reality of the industry that the performers often have to bear the weight of these pressures. In his podcast, Bruce Pritchard explains Eddie's mindset whilst he was champion.
Responsibility being champion, as you're the only one carrying the ball, and I found it very difficult. It was the first time I'd held the title, and I don't think I was ready. I was ready to win the belt, but not for what lay ahead of me. I wasn't prepared mentally for what happens outside the ring, because I think that's where the real challenges lie. I was taking things like attendances and ratings very personally.
For me, Eddie's story is a difficult one to hear. He's always been honest about his battles with addiction and alcohol. In his autobiography and in interviews, he's opened up about the constant pain he's been ever since his car accident in 2001. He goes on to mention that he has an ankle that's been reconstructed and he has 3 fractured vertebrae that never really fully healed. And Eddie also speaks about how he was struggling with his relationship with his wife Vicky at the time. This is mainly due to the pills and the alcohol issues that he was going through.
Liver is bleeding. He's got a broken hip socket. He's going to suffer for many, many years because of these injuries. But he does say that this is ultimately what got him hooked on pills.
His friends and fellow wrestlers did notice his worsening condition and arranged a meeting with Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard to intervene. So whilst Eddie did agree to go to rehab initially, it was unfortunate because he did relapse several times. But for Eddie, the final straw came on November 9th, 2001 when he was arrested for drunk driving and Vince McMahon had no choice to release him from his WWE contract. According to Bruce Pritchard, Eddie needed to suffer some of the consequences and loss of something to realize the severity of his situation. So when Eddie passed away in 2005, many felt that WWE installed a wellness policy in response to the negative press the company received after his death. But the wellness policy does tackle two of the main issues. One is drug testing and the other one is the well-being of the performers. Only time will tell how effective this may be in saving lives. As for Eddie and the other wrestlers mentioned, we hope that their stories can serve as a cautionary tale for others struggling with addiction. And if you liked the video, please make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and make sure to check out our other video on steroid abuse within WWE.